Welcome to the Growth in Life virtual mentoring series. Today's installment is on time management. Our speakers today are Petite Queen co-founders Tina and myself, Lynn, along with our Director of Operations and Communications, Rachel, and she completes our panel. Let's get started. So I'm going to start and get this kicked off. A core time management tip is knowing your priorities. You've got to have a handle on them to effectively manage your time and get through busy times. To help me sort out and understand my priorities, I evaluate the following. What's the timeline? When does a task or project need to be completed? What is the time commitment? In other words, how much time will it take to accomplish? And are there any interdependencies? Do certain tasks or elements within a large project need to be done in a specific order? And if so, what has to be done first? So the image on this slide is an example of how I managed a large personal project, my father's memorial. I had to consider all of the points I just mentioned, and for me, it was very helpful to organize everything in a binder. That way, I had all of the moving parts in one mobile, easy-to-access location. I followed the same structure on my computer, and I had a master folder for the memorial with subfolders, just like the tabs in the binder. For me, the hard copy binder helped a lot. Tina, do you have tips on knowing your priorities?
Thanks, Lynn. So I like color coding actions or color coding events. I have a number of different hats that I wear during the day, whether it be a particular work hat or a board hat or a personal hat. I have different things that I'm doing throughout the day, so I find it very helpful to color code so that when I'm glancing at my calendar, I either my hard copy calendar, which I love, or my phone calendar. I have to keep them both in sync, but I can easily identify what I have that day, which different hats that I'm wearing, and that helps me to focus in. Rachel, how about you?
I think you, Tina, and Lynn have both covered most of the real tips that you're going to need. Another one that I think is possibly the same as timeline is the urgency, and I'm going to get a little bit into more to that in my trick. So let's go to that. So for me, my particular trick is the age-old to-do list, but mine is with a bit of a twist. So what you're seeing there on the left is an actual example of one of my to-do lists, although usually my handwriting is even worse than that. I made it nice and pretty for you. So this was inspired by a TEDx talk I watched by Jessica Jimeno. If I'm pronouncing her name correctly, I apologize if I am not. It's called How to Get Stuff Done When You're Depressed. And I struggle with depression. I have for several years now. It's something I'm very open with. And it often, one of the many symptoms that comes with depression is not really wanting to do anything. I don't have the energy. I don't have the motivation. I can't focus. You know, what's the point? Why would I bother? But with this particular to-do list, I'm able to make the best of my time even when I'm in a really difficult depressive episode. And I create this style of to-do list, which that TEDx talk instructed me on how to do. So what I do is I list out all of the tasks, even the really simple ones. You'll notice there I have breakfast, have lunch. Sometimes I need to remind myself to eat, so I make sure that those things are on there. And then next to that, I have a ranking of difficulty, which is on a scale of 1 to 4, 1 being easy, something I would do anyway, and 4 being something that's going to be difficult for me. And then after that, I rank it by priority or urgency on a scale of 1 to 4. I rank that with stars. So 1 star means it needs to be done at some point. 4 stars, it needs to be done that day. And when I'm having a bad day, when I have no energy or I can't focus or something like that, I work on doing the things that are the most urgent and the things that are the easiest. And that way I'm able to make the best of my time with the energy I have, by using this wonderful to-do list. Tina, any thoughts on this?
Yes, I do have a couple of ideas here. One is all the best to-do lists can get moved by interruptions. So I think it's important as well to allow yourself some time for interruptions, and know that hang on, and know that even the best laid plans and the best to-do lists, there's still going to be time in the day, and we'll talk about this a little more as about the flexibility. But another way to think about arranging the to-do list is to think of them as, we really have three ways to spend time during the day. We have our thoughts, we have our conversations, and we have those things that are actionable. And I think within each of those, which you've done quite well here, Rachel, is that within each of those, understand that they're part of your day is going to be either through thought or conversation or action. And a to-do list, it doesn't necessarily always have to be a specific action. Lynn, what do you think about that?
Well, absolutely. And I like the fact that it's color coded, that which you had brought up on the last slide, Tina. And while I don't follow Rachel's methodology, I do absolutely use to-do lists. I use them every day. I have a running list on my notes or in my notes on my phone, plus handwritten lists. So I find this very effective. So we're going to go to choosing your battles, and I'll go ahead and kick this off. And I want to talk about, what's my first piece of advice, and that's to get real. What is it with this superwoman or supermom mentality? So that's my whole get real thing. And while this sounds sort of tongue in cheek, you're setting ridiculous expectations for yourselves and for others. And that's what really getting real is about, is there's only so much you can accomplish. So you have to be realistic about what is reasonable and what's really important and what you can let go. So that segues right into bandwidth. And everyone has a finite amount of time and a finite amount of bandwidth, what they can really handle. And you have to recognize this in others as well as yourself and be supportive and understanding. The art to compromise. We've all been there. Often things cannot be exactly the way that we would want them to be. It could be that you're pressed for time, there's financial constraints, or there are other interdependencies that are impacting what you would really like to see happen or what you would like to do. So while you'll want to strive for the things that are really important or vital to you, staying positive and embracing the necessity of what can't be accomplished is just as important. Rachel, what strategies do you use when choosing your battles?
Well, I think your topic of bandwidth sort of relates to what I had just talked about with my depressive episodes. See, you're right that everyone has a finite bandwidth. The number of tasks or the difficulty of the tasks that you can take on at any given time, and sometimes that fluctuates. So, on my good days, I have rather wide bandwidth. I impress myself sometimes, and then other days, if I can get out of bed, that's pretty incredible. So you have to choose your battles every day, oftentimes. This day, I don't have the energy to do everything, so this is what's important to me. This is what I'm going to take the time to fight for. And then other times, you can take on bigger battles that you wouldn't be able to do on other days. What are your thoughts, Tina?
I think you've both covered some really good area here. All I have to add is to remember to forgive yourself if you can't get everything done, because there are some days that there are just so many other things that occur and go into the day, whether it's the reality or what your bandwidth is, or where you have to make a determination, and sometimes you're not always in control of that. And it's just to know that sometimes it's okay if you don't get everything done. There are some work philosophies that say within a to-do list, you should only have a few things, because that way you can always complete them all and you don't have anything to move to the next day, so that you have a clean slate the next day. And that works for some people, but for others, and Lynn, I know you're very good with your to-do lists, and you also just work to the bitter end to be sure you can get everything done that you've written down that you were going to do. So I think it's a matter of how these fit within our own personalities and our own work styles, and but it's so important to when choosing your battles to really know where your position is, and that sometimes it's okay. It's okay to compromise. And I think that goes on to me, doesn't it, about planning your day. So, time, there's two types of time. There's clock time. There's so many minutes in a day. There's 24 hours in a day. There's 7 days in a week. That clock time is something we have no control over, right? But the real time is relative. That's what we create, and how we manage is real time. So there's clock time and real time. And this is really our ability to use our real time effectively. And if we're on clock time, it's how we can manage that clock to fit in with what's actually happening and to work in a very efficient, productive manner. So what I like to do the day before, the night before, at the end of the day, is I take a look at all the things that I have to do the next day. And I look at the logistics of where those need to be done. Some of us travel for a living. Some of us have multiple places that they need to be in a particular day. And I like to plan things out to be the most efficient, time efficient. If I'm driving from, let's say I'm in Los Angeles and I have a meeting in Orange County, I know that I need a couple of hours of time to drive, to be there at a location. So what types of things can I be doing in the car that I can be getting off my checklist? What phone calls can I be making during those 2 hours? But and along the way, is there anybody else that I might be able to see or stop in on as I'm driving? If I'm flying to a location, I try to make the most efficient time on the airplane of being able to catch up on emails or reading or reports. It's whatever you can do within the space. And it's important to keep a schedule of the thoughts and conversations and activities that you're doing, and so that you know the best way in which to execute those. And it's just, we have geography, so I'm talking logistics, I'm talking geographic, but I'm also talking flexibility, because there's always going to be interruptions. There's always going to be that SIG alert on the 405 and you're not going to get to your appointment on time. So you've got to be able to know that you can call and let them know that you're not necessarily, I mean, that's something you have absolutely no control over. You may have had the entire day planned to go for a particular appointment, and you're halfway there and the appointment calls to say that something came up in their schedule and they're not going to be able to see you. So how best can you replan your day? How best do you know what else is in that area? Who else you might know in that? How can you switch? How can you be flexible with your schedule to bounce back and not lose that valuable, what we're calling relative time? Lynn, do you have anything to add to that?
My number one mantra is flexibility. So everything changes, sometimes minute to minute. It can get crazy. And when planning my day, I try to take a deep breath and enjoy the ride. So whatever you're doing, whether it's at home, at work, managing, getting the kids somewhere, doing volunteer activities, whatever you have going on, it always seems like there's a lot of things coming at you. So that flexibility should be in all uppercase, as far as I'm concerned. Rachel?
I think I think Tina and Lynn, you both covered it all. There's not much I really have to add to planning your day more efficiently than that.
Okay. So I think again, it's if you're in your mind's eye or on the paper, you can see the kind of the idea of the broader sense of what your day is going to be looking like and where you need to be if you're flying, if you're driving, and then knowing that there's always going to be those unexpected things. That's a first step in getting more done, which is our next slide here, is getting more done, right? So on your calendar, what works best for you? Um, Lynn gave some tips, as did Rachel, as did I. I like the color coding, so I know what's going on within the calendar. But for me, taking a look at what is coming up from the night before. If I take a look the night before, I really have a lot of clarity when I'm looking at the calendar and I'm trying to calculate what I would like, ideally, my day to look like. And if I get things written down, maybe I can sleep a little better, and I can wake up knowing that I know exactly what I'm going to be doing. The other thing, and we talk about staying on task, it's really about ritual. You know, the most successful people always do the same things every day. If they get up in the morning and they decide they exercise for an hour, well, by golly, they do that every single day. They get up, they exercise, they have breakfast, they make some phone calls, or they're reading, and they get on. But it's doing the same thing consistently. As best you can, being flexible because you might get interrupted. And we have taking one step at a time. And then the one thing we always have, that there's always something that absolutely positively has to get done. And Mark Twain had a saying, eat a live frog first thing in the morning and nothing worse will happen to you the rest of the day. Well, we're not going to eat a live frog. We like
Oh, yeah,
frogs.
gross.
We like frogs. But that's essentially saying that if you tackle the most difficult task, the most just the worst task, if you tackle that first thing in the morning, everything else you do is going to be relatively easy for the rest of the day.
Well, now we're going to have all the frog lovers after us, so I think the little critters are really cute.
I like them too. Well, Lynn, all right, why don't you
I have to admit that I'm far more effective when I'm organized. It's that simple. And so the suggestions that we've been talking about all help. And for my calendar, often I actually will print from my iCal. I'll print my day, and I'll do that for the whole week as I move into the week. So I have the things that have to happen, the meetings that are scheduled, appointments that you have. And then I have some specific like to-do items that I can put over and write in, like things that I want to get accomplished both for work and for personal, for home, etc. during that week. And I find that that helps me quite a bit. So that sort of goes back, I'm throwing this back to our to-do list, but it's also talking about a calendar and staying on task. And to your point, you just got to get through the things that you need to get through. So Rachel, what are your thoughts?
Well, to carry on with this frog metaphor, I might get a little gory here, but you have there at the bottom one step at a time, and I agree that doing the worst thing, the thing that you least want to do, as early as possible helps. Sometimes you do need to work up to it, but get it done as soon as possible. But sometimes that's kind of a big frog, and your mouth's just not that big, so you do have to take it one step at a time. Let's avoid talking about dismembering this frog, but when you eat a meal, you have to eat it one bite at a time, and that's the way you can avoid some of these big, daunting tasks. Is we'll break it down into smaller steps, and if even those steps are too big, break it down into even smaller steps. Step 1, write the title. Step 2, write your introduction paragraph. Things like that.
That's a really good point, Rachel. That's a very good point. There's a great book, Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, and essentially, it's just that if you're taking care of the little things all the way along, then you are preventing the larger things from overlooming, right? It's
Exactly.
so, and I appreciate what your thoughts on that. There were a couple other things that I meant to mention earlier in here in the getting more done, and one is just take the time to block out distractions. Take the time to block out social media or Facebook or your emails or your telephones and concentrate. Give yourself some free time here to get work done, to get some of the tasks done, because we get interrupted all the time, and if to the extent that we're able to control that by turning the phone off or turning the cell phones off or the office phones off, and just giving yourself some time to actually consider and have some time with it, that'll help us get more done as well. But then there's always the temptress of procrastination, which is really self-sabotaging, isn't it? Um, procrastination is a habit. It's an ingrained pattern of behavior that just some of us, and I think I am the queen of procrastination. It's just not something that's easy to overcome. Some things that can help is making up your own rewards. Well, if I get this done, by golly, I can go get a cup of coffee, or if maybe I'll have some peer pressure. Let someone know, hey, I'm really trying to get this done, but maybe if you check in on me in a couple of hours. But then I don't know. Then that's a little forced pressure. And I'm a big believer in trying to learn anti-procrastination strategies on your own. This goes back to the frog metaphor again. If you have that frog, you can, and you take care of that in the morning, and the rest of your day is going to be just as, will be very, it will be more palatable. Um, and, if you're doing it if you're procrastinating because something's unpleasant, maybe it'll be not as bad as we think it might be. And you kind of work around it. You do it a little step at a time. And it's decision making, and it's that decision that I'm not going to do it, or the decision that, at some point or another, I'm going to have to address it. So why not now? And that goes back to really planning your day and making sure that you are that you yourself are in control of your time. Rachel, what do you think
Yeah, I
about
think
procrastination?
procrastination is quite a temptress, I will say. I also have a big procrastination problem, have since college. Um, and not wanting to, that's a big thing for me. It's just I just sit here and be like, I don't want to do that, like a toddler being forced to eat their vegetables. Um, and there are some ways around it. I can't say that I always do a good job of it, but back to my handy dandy to-do list. There are little check mark boxes on that, and every day I kind of have a personal competition, a little competition with myself to see how many of those little check boxes can I get ticked. And sometimes I can't do the important things like tackle some big project, but hey, at least I went to the gym today, or at least I practiced the piano for a little bit. Hey, I've done
Right.
something. And if you're procrastinating on a big project, unfortunately, sometimes I'd be like, well, I keep pushing this project out each day, but at least I keep practicing the piano. Hey, well, that's not really helpful in the long term. So then you're going to have to find another competition. And like, my heart goes out to anyone who struggles with the I don't want to mentality, but I believe in you. Find something that works for you. Reward yourself with some candy or a movie, but don't reward yourself before you actually get it done.
Great point. Lynn, how about you?
Well, it's interesting because the other day, Tina, and we were planning this presentation, you told me that you didn't think I procrastinated at all. I was very surprised. I don't know if you recall that conversation, but
I do.
we all do
And I
this.
believe it. No, you are the most proactive individual when it comes to tackling things that I know.
But we all do this. We all procrastinate. And that absolutely includes me, myself, and I. And I guess somehow I've just managed to hide it. So I'm going to talk about this making more room and working around it. So for me personally, my primary form of procrastination is to do other things. So I work around them. So I allow new items that crop up during the day to take a priority. And my logic is that if I can do them very quickly and they're done. But suddenly I find that hours have gone by and I have not completed one of the key tasks that I had set out to accomplish for the day. So how do I make more room? How do I do better for myself? And so when I can't afford distractions, there are some days that there are things that you absolutely have to take care of. You have to get done. And I'm going to push back on that temptress of procrastination. I close my door. I put my phone on airplane mode. I quit all my email applications. I put on some calming music. I have this Lynn's Calm mix that I play, and I just get to the task. And that's how I then do that, what you've talked about, Tina, that laser focus, so I can get to it. Because this is something that affects all of us. So I'm going to go.
I like how you do that. I like that. We'll have to put Lynn's calm list, calm mix out there on the Petite to Queen website at some point.
All right, we'll take a look.
We can share that with everyone.
Well, and that gets us down to when we're really looking at time management, sharing the load. So for me, the key is to ask for help. I tend to expect my family to notice that I need help and to just jump in, or to just offer to help, every day as a matter of course. And I've had to learn to ask. So that's my first tip. And I'm sure you'll find, as I have, that a certain amount of strategy is needed to motivate your family, your roommates, your friends, or your partners to pitch in. So first of all, don't ask when they're in the middle of something or their attention is focused elsewhere. So for an example, during a show, don't ask them, right when they're concentrated and they're watching it. Ask during the commercial break. Mute the TV and say, hey, can you help me out with this? Be brief so that they can get back to what they're doing. And so that's also part of the negotiation as part of strategy, right? So it can be anything from trading chores or helping them with a task that they need done. And so that you're both helping each other. And then there's this question, about sharing, is it worth it? So we can take this as a number of ways. Is it worth to ask someone to do something and then they never do it? And it just, becomes frustrating. Or is it another part of, is it worth it? Maybe because you've got such a heavy workload in the office that you need some help at home. So maybe you normally prepare the meals and you need some of that load lifted. And so not preparing meals for the entire week is an option, but how do you accomplish that option? And maybe it's not worth it to pay for takeout every night because that can really add up, ka-ching, ka-ching. But you might find other alternatives. Have someone else do the cooking, make very simple meals that you can just buy something that's pre-made, and yet at Costco, some of those great things, you just throw it in the oven and wham, you've got a fabulous dinner. So, Rachel, what are your thoughts?
I really liked your bit on learning how to ask for help, because one part of it is what you mentioned, like you can't expect the people around you to read your mind. They don't know. People are off in their own little world, dealing with their own little problems, and they don't necessarily notice when you're struggling. And it'd be nice if they did, and sometimes they do, and that's really touching, but you can't expect them to. And also, sometimes asking for help can be very difficult. It's something that I used to struggle with quite a lot, is admitting that, hey, I'm actually kind of struggling here, and being able to ask someone to help you with the task, whatever that may be. And I think asking for help is a skill in itself, and it's something I encourage everyone to take the time to do. I'm not saying that you're not Superwoman, you still are, but even Superwoman needs a little help sometimes, right? What do you think, Tina? Am I right?
Oh, I absolutely agree with that. And I think one of the very grown up things to learn is to know when to ask for help. If it's when to ask for help because you don't understand something, or if it's to ask for help because I just don't have enough. There are, again, there's time. There is clock time, and then there's real time. And a lot of times that clock time interferes with my real time. And I need to get something picked up by a certain time, and I'm not going to be able to get from point A to point B, and I need to ask somebody to help me with that. Or in order for me to move forward on a project, I need to ask someone for help. So I think it absolutely, you know, we are we're not a society of one, we're a society of many. And it's so important that all of us realize that. We're a community, and in a civil community, in a civilized society, it's okay to share and to ask. To Lynn's point, is it worth it for those that are in a position to be able to pay someone to go pick up that dry cleaning, or to come in and clean the house, or to go out and do the gardening, and that frees up time for something else? Fortunate that a person may be in a position to do that. And that may be a trade-off. It may be worth it. It may be worth it to have someone, if you have a child, to have someone come in for an afternoon and watch your child, so that you have some time either to yourself, or some time to be able to get your to-do list done without distractions. So I think in life, at work, you know, everything is a strategy. It's a negotiation all the time. And I think there's no shame, no apologies necessary when asking someone for help. Now, let's talk about me, because it is all about me. Forget about what I just said about the society. And no, I'm kidding. But we do need time for ourselves. We really do. We need time to recharge. And for some of us, that might be as easy as figuring out our sleeping times. That um, it's so important to get a good night's rest, to give yourself time to recharge. It's just as important to get out and to exercise. Maybe it's just taking a walk, or some of us like to go to the gym, some of us like to swim, some of us like to run or hike, but something to kind of get the fresh air and clear our minds. Take breaks, eat. It is so important to eat. I can go an entire day and realize all I've done is drink coffee all day. And believe me, I'm not nearly as effective as if I would have stopped to take the time to have a little bit to eat that helps fuel my brain. But those things all are just so important on an ongoing basis for health and wellness. Um, you can also, some people may find meditation works for them. I know a lot of people that enjoy meditation or prayer, or different ways of learning. There is, of course, I don't know how you do it, but it's just a matter of doing nothing. And if doing nothing means doing nothing but sitting and staring out the window, or doing nothing means sitting and watching some inane television show, or reading or playing games, or whatever that do nothing is, because do nothing means a lot of different things, I think, to many people. But it's something that allows your mind just to go off and not and just be still. We all need some stillness in our lives.
Yeah, I
Rachel?
agree. Yeah, I have doing nothing is pretty important for me. In addition to depression, I also deal with anxiety. I think a lot of people do. And I need a chance to unwind and just not think, not try to figure anything out, not learn anything. Just for me, it's watching Netflix or YouTube. I just sit there and watch and play games on my phone. It's not useful at all. I say that I need to veg. I need to vegetate for a while and just not be productive. It's for me, it's like a reset for my brain. You know, sleeping, you do nothing, and then you also need some waking nothingness. And it's a chance for me to just exist without expectation, without pressure on myself. And I'm not. I'm gonna get into the macro sense here for a second, but I'm not commenting on our economic system of capitalism at large. But one of the side effects of a capitalist society such as ours is the idea that you need to be productive all of the time. Time spent not being productive is time wasted. That's a common thought process. And I think that this is your chance to rebel against that and say, no, time doing nothing is not time wasted. It's time that I needed to take for myself. And I think that's very important. Do you agree, Lynn? Anti-capitalist sentiments here?
Well, I think that there's another side to capitalism that says that you do need to be rested and well prepared to succeed. And that I would segue that into making time for what makes you happy. You absolutely have to take care of your whole person and yourself to be able to be as productive, to be as successful, to be as supportive for other people. If you aren't doing that, you're going to break down. Just like if you're not servicing a car and you're not changing the oil, it's going to break down because you weren't taking care of it. So that means you got to take care of yourself. And there is no right or wrong way of what that means. Watching Netflix, working in your garden. For me, I mean, the last month, I think we've been doing a Jane Austen movie marathon every night. And and I knit while we watch so many parts. If it's a Masterpiece Theater, then it's multiple parts and we don't finish it. So we watch, part of it. But, once I work through all those, I won't be doing that for a while, but it's been relaxing, and I still am doing something else because I'm also knitting, and that's just me. But I'm still sort of check my mind out. I'm watching this wonderful Jane Austen dialogue, and I'm loving it. So it's something that makes me happy, and it's time for myself, allows me to relax and recharge for the next day. So I think, to everyone's point, you find what makes you happy, and you've got to make the time to do that for yourself, to give yourself that break, because you're not going to be good for anyone if you're not taking care of yourself.
Well said.
All right. So here we are. Thank you so much to all of our members and guests who joined us for this installment of Growth in Life Virtual Mentoring Series, and for being part of the dialogue here at Petite to Queen. If you have a question or would like to suggest topics for discussion, please email us at jointheconversation@petitetoqueen.com.